The House Select Committee investigating the January 6th attack on the Capitol is, for the first time, requesting testimony from a member of Congress, asking him to voluntarily submit to an interview about, among other things, trying to install Jeffrey Clark as acting Attorney General. Quote, "We have received evidence from multiple witnesses that you had an important role in the efforts to install Mr. Clark as acting Attorney General. Acting Attorney General Rosen and Acting Deputy Attorney General Donahue have provided evidence regarding these issues, and we have received evidence that others who worked with Mr. Clark were aware of these plans." Congressman Scott Perry introduced Jeffrey Clark to Donald Trump, according to a report released in October by the Senate Judiciary Committee. The committee's chairman, Benny Thompson, his letter to Congressman Perry also states, "We are also aware that you had multiple text and other communications with President Trump's former chief of staff regarding Mr. Clark. And we also have evidence indicating that in that time frame, you sent communications to the former chief of staff using the encrypted Signal app." Yesterday, Republican member of the Select Committee, Congressman Adam Kinzinger, said this about his Republican colleagues.
Do you think that some of your Republican colleagues bear direct responsibility for that riot?
It's possible. I'm not ready to kind of go to that point yet because I want to let the facts dictate it. But I will tell you, yes, there are more texts out there that we haven't released.
Congressman Kinzinger was asked about the possibility of a subpoena for Donald Trump's testimony.
Nobody, member of Congress, former president, nobody in America is above the law.
So a subpoena for former President Trump. Again, I know the committee hasn't made a decision, but you think that should happen?
Here's how I'll say, if we need it, yes. Nobody should be above the law, but we also recognize we can get the information without him at this point. And obviously, when you subpoena the former president, that comes with a whole kind of, circus environment. But if we need him, we'll do it.
Joining us now, Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell. He served as a House impeachment manager in the second impeachment trial of Donald Trump. Of these texts from Mark Meadows, it turns out he seems to be the central crossroads everyone was texting to. So if you are like Congressman Perry, someone who was texting to Mark Meadows, you know that the committee knows what you did.
We were flying in the blind, Lawrence. This was just a couple of weeks after the insurrection. We had no cooperative witnesses. We had very few Republicans who wanted to work with us. And thank God that we stood up this January 6th commission, and they have the luxury of time, the luxury of being able to subpoena third-party records. So they're getting cell phone records. And even if they don't have content, they're getting the metadata. So who called who, when did each person text one another, what time did they text one another, and they're piecing it all together. And so to protect the investigative equities, they're not revealing all of it because as they bring witnesses in, they don't want witnesses to know what they have because they may try and tailor their testimony around it. But boy, it is starting to look like that there were a lot of my Republican colleagues who were willing to abuse every lever of power, military, Department of Justice, the White House, to try and overturn an election and overturn the will of the American people. And I suspect there's going to be much, much more to come as far as members of Congress they want to hear from.
Let's listen to more what Congressman Kinzinger had to say this time about Kevin McCarthy.
Kevin McCarthy, on the other hand, has not said a word about anything, except for that Donald Trump is probably the greatest president to ever exist. And Kevin McCarthy himself, I think, made Donald Trump relevant again when 2 weeks after January 6th or so, he went back down to Mar-a-Lago and brought him back to political life by putting his arm around him, taking that picture, and basically sending a signal to the rest of the Republicans that were pretty quiet at this moment that we got to get back on the Trump train. And he bears responsibility for that. I don't think history books are going to be kind to him.
We do know that Kevin McCarthy was in some communication with the White House, but at this point, we don't, on January 6th, we don't know whether it was text or voice. The voice communication, of course, will be harder to get an accurate reading on.
Kevin McCarthy was a very effective starburst sorter for Donald Trump. not so effective when it comes to showing integrity or honor. But we know from impeachment number 2 that Kevin McCarthy relayed to Jamie Herrera Butler, a Republican from Washington, the conversation he had with Donald Trump, where Trump was upset with McCarthy that he wasn't showing the same type of anger that those were showing who were inside the Capitol. I think he's a relevant witness. He talked to Donald Trump as the insurrection was taking place. He knows the state of mind of Donald Trump. And if the commission seeks to avoid having Trump testify, or if Trump himself takes the fifth or does not come in, then you're going to need these peripheral witnesses who talk to Trump to have his state of mind, so you have an accurate accounting of what happened.